Before we begin, take a deep breath. Try to let go of the noise around you for a few moments. Picture yourself walking down a quiet street at sunset. Every step you take brings up a memory. Some stories don't start with success or joy. They begin in hard times, in quiet struggles, in moments when hope is small, but still alive. This is one of those stories. It's about a man who once slept in public bathrooms with his young son, and later stood on Wall Street as a millionaire CEO. A man who didn't just dream about happiness, he fought for it with everything he had. This is the story of Chris Gardner. Chris Gardner was born in 1954 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. From the beginning, life was hard. He grew up in a poor and broken home. His stepfather was violent, and his mother, Betty Jean, although loving, went through many personal struggles. She even spent time in jail. Chris lived with fear, hunger, and not knowing where he would sleep. As a child, he made a promise. If he ever had kids, he would always be there for them, and they would never feel the pain he felt. In his early 20s, Chris tried to find a better path. He served in the Navy, then moved to San Francisco in the late 1970s for a fresh start. He got a job selling medical equipment, but the money wasn't enough. He married Sherry Dyson, but their relationship became difficult because of money problems and uncertainty about his future. Then came a major moment. He became a father. In 1981, his son Christopher Jr. was born to his girlfriend, Jackie Medina. Fatherhood gave Chris a new reason to keep going, but it also added more pressure. He needed to earn more, but his job barely paid the bills, and he fell into debt. Things got worse when Chris and his baby were kicked out of their apartment. Suddenly, they were homeless. Chris was now a single dad with no money and no place to live. He had to carry his toddler, his bags, and his broken dreams, often sleeping in public restrooms, subway stations, or shelters. But even during these dark times, he refused to give up. Later, he said those moments helped him become stronger. He would not let his situation decide his or his son's future. One day, everything changed. While parking his car, Chris saw a man step out of a red Ferrari. He was impressed by the car and the man's confidence. So he asked what he did for a living. The man was a stockbroker and made $80,000 a month, an amount Chris couldn't even imagine. That moment inspired him. Chris didn't have a college degree, any financial background, or connections, but he had a powerful dream and the will to follow it. He decided he would become a stockbroker too. Chris applied to a training program at Dean Witter Reynolds, a top brokerage firm. The program was unpaid and very competitive. Hundreds of well-educated people applied, many with Ivy League degrees. Chris arrived at the interview wearing worn-out clothes, straight from a shelter, but he was honest, passionate, and full of determination. He told them he had no formal education, but he was ready to work harder than anyone. To everyone's surprise, he was accepted into the internship. It was a small chance, but it was a start. Getting into the internship was just the beginning. The job had no pay, and only 1 or 2 people would get a full-time role at the end. Chris had to balance this intense job with being a single father and being homeless. Each morning he woke up in a shelter or sometimes on a subway bench. He dressed his little son and dropped him off at a daycare run by a kind woman who accepted whatever Chris could afford, sometimes only a few dollars. Then he rushed to Dean Witter, trying to look clean and professional, even though his clothes were old and wrinkled. Other interns had nice suits, warm homes, and didn't have to worry about their next meal. But Chris kept pushing forward. The work was hard. He had to make hundreds of cold calls every day, trying to convince strangers to invest their money. Most people hung up on him, but Chris didn't give up. He used each rejection to learn and improve. At night, he picked up his son, found a place to sleep, sometimes a shelter, sometimes a bathroom, and studied. He stayed up late with a flashlight, learning financial rules and how the stock market worked. He barely slept, but he never stopped trying. He had to hide his homelessness from the company. He didn't want them to see him as weak. During lunch, he ran to get cheap meals or handouts, then rushed back to work like nothing was wrong. The stress was overwhelming. Some nights, Chris looked at his sleeping son and wondered if he was doing the right thing. He was afraid he might be failing him. But then he remembered his own childhood and why he made that promise. He knew he had to keep going. At one point, Chris was arrested because of unpaid parking tickets. He spent a night in jail, separated from his son. He was released the next day, rushed to find his son, and still showed up at work like nothing had happened. Every day felt like walking on the edge. One mistake could ruin everything. Still, he kept working, calling clients, studying, and caring for his son. His bosses noticed his dedication. They saw he had something special, even if they didn't know his full story. As the internship neared its end, the pressure grew. Chris knew he had to be better than everyone else. He came in early and stayed late. He found a smart trick. He didn't hang up the phone after each call. Instead, he kept the receiver against his shoulder and dialed the next number right away. This saved time and let him make more calls than the others. People started listening to him. He was honest, warm, and real. Clients trusted him. He wasn't just selling, he was connecting. And his list of clients slowly grew. Still, he had no idea if he would be hired. The only guarantee he had was his own hard work. Then, he passed the Series 7 exam, a tough test that gave him a stockbroker's license. It was a big step forward, but the job wasn't his yet. Finally, the big day came. His manager called him into the office. Chris walked in with his heart racing. And then the manager smiled. "You got the job." Chris couldn't believe it. Years of pain, fear, and sacrifice had led to this one moment. He went to pick up his son, held him tight, and cried. He had done it. Now that Chris had a real job as a stockbroker, life started to change. He had a desk, a paycheck, and the chance to build a future. He worked just as hard as ever, learning more about the market, building strong relationships with clients, and growing his success. His past struggles kept him motivated. He didn't just want to survive anymore. He wanted to build a legacy for his son. In 1987, he took a big risk. He left Dean Witter and started his own company, Gardner Company, in Chicago. He started with just $10,000 and one desk in his apartment. The name Rich wasn't just about money. It was a tribute to the man with the Ferrari, the one who sparked his dream. Slowly, his company grew. He earned the trust of big clients and managed millions in investments. He became well known in the world of finance. But even as he became wealthy, Chris stayed grounded. He remembered the shelters, the hunger, and the kindness of strangers. He raised his son with love and taught him about hard work and never giving up. He started sharing his story in public speeches, schools, and community events. He told people, no matter where you start, you can still reach your dreams. In 2006, his life story was turned into a movie, The Pursuit of Happyness, starring Will Smith. The movie touched hearts around the world and made Chris a symbol of hope. After the movie, Chris Gardner became a global inspiration. But he always said that true success wasn't fame or money. It was making a difference. He supported homeless shelters like Glide Memorial Church, which once gave him and his son food and a place to sleep. He donated to education programs and helped young people chase their dreams. He spoke openly about his struggles, never hiding the pain, the rejection, or the fear. He told the truth so that others could feel less alone. His greatest pride was being a father. His son, Christopher Jr., grew up watching his father's journey and became strong, just like him. Chris often said, "Being the father I never had, that's my biggest achievement." Today, Chris Gardner is more than a millionaire. He is a father, a teacher, a giver, a survivor. His story is not a spotlight that shines only on him. It's a lantern held out to light the way for others. To remind you, you can make it, even from a subway bathroom floor. Chris didn't give up, and maybe you shouldn't either. Whatever you're facing today, no matter how heavy it feels, remember, rock bottom is not the end. Sometimes it's the beginning of something beautiful. Keep moving forward. Because happiness isn't handed to us. It's pursued, one step, one sacrifice, one sleepless night at a time. Thank you for listening to Chris Gardner's incredible journey. If it gave you hope, please share it with someone who needs a little light today. This is Story Hub reminding you, you were never meant to give up.